Coming up, the New York Knicks winning ways continue, and the Lakers get burned by the 76ers. This is Locked On Game to Game NBA.
Every game, every team, every angle. Locked On Game to Game, your team every day.
Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game NBA. Local experts joining us to go over the biggest stories on the hardwood. I am your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every weekday. The Knicks have now won their 11th straight game behind a huge scoring night from Julius Randle. Locked On Pistons and Locked On Knicks give us the details from both sides.
The New York Knicks have won 7 of their last 8 games, and Julius Randle is putting up stats we haven't seen since Patrick Ewing in the 90s. Alex Wolf from Locked On Knicks here. Should the Knicks have beaten this Pistons team without some of their best players as one of the worst teams in the entire NBA? Yes, they should have. But we've seen the Knicks lose to worse in the past, and they didn't, and they're not lately. They're beating the teams they should beat, capping off a totally undefeated 2-game weekend with the win against the Wizards on Friday night as well. Julius Randle, too, 42.15 rebound, double-double, becomes the first Knick with a 40-15 double-double since Patrick Ewing in the 90s. Certainly great company to keep. Lots of great stuff going on with the Knicks right now. Maybe 2 All-Stars with Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle. Who's to say? We'll have plenty to say on Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast.
The Knicks have now won 11 in a row, but the Bulls had dropped 11 in a row heading into Sunday night's game against the Warriors. Locked On Warriors has more on how a career night for Nikola Vucevic stopped Golden State in their tracks.
The Golden State Warriors road woes continue. I'm Cyrus Satsas with your Locked On Warriors Locked On Now recap of the Warriors falling to the Chicago Bulls 132-118 in the Windy City. Nikola Vucevic ate up the Warriors' small interior, scoring 43 points, grabbing 13 boards. Patrick Baldwin Jr., the Warriors' tallest player on the roster at 6'10", only saw 2 garbage time minutes, with Kerr opting to play Anthony Lamb at 6'5", 22 minutes, and the Bulls' bigs feasted. Klay Thompson had another great game, 26 points on 8 of 15 shooting from 3. Stephen Curry in his 3rd game back at 20 points, 10 rebounds, and unfortunately 8 turnovers. Part of the Warriors' 23 turnovers in this game, which is a huge reason for the loss. The Warriors continue this 5-game road trip tomorrow, the second half of a back-to-back in Washington, to take on the Wizards. A new Locked On Warriors comes immediately following that game.
The Lakers have one of the few players in the NBA who can match up with Joel Embiid, but Anthony Davis unfortunately sat this one out. Los Angeles got burned by Philly in the process. Locked On Lakers recaps that loss.
This is Andy Kamenetsky, co-host of Locked On Lakers podcast, and the Lakers lose 113-112 to the Sixers in LA. A really tight game with near identical stats for both teams, multiple lead changes. Neither team led by double digits the entire game, and star performances from Joel Embiid, James Harden, LeBron James, and Russell Westbrook. But unfortunately, Russ will be remembered in this game, not for setting a record for most triple-doubles off the bench. He has 4 now. But the Lakers' final possession, where he nearly dribbled into a turnover, eventually did have what was recorded in the books as a shot, but possibly was a pass blocked near the rim, and he looked off LeBron the entire time. Ouch. A lot more to get into, so make sure you are subscribing to the Locked On Lakers YouTube channel and make Locked On Lakers your first listen wherever you get your podcasts.
2 games, 2 wins for Portland as they sweep a weekend doubleheader against Dallas. Locked On Mavericks talks about the pair of losses, while Locked On Trailblazers is happy to go over another win.
The Dallas Mavericks fall to the Portland Trailblazers without Luka Doncic, but process was much better in the second game of a back-to-back. Nick Angstead from the Locked On Mavericks podcast here. And even though the Dallas Mavericks fall in this game 140-123, you may look at that score and be like, oh, they got blown out again. How can this Mavericks team? But it really came down to just a 2-minute stretch in the fourth quarter where the Blazers, pretty much fully healthy, pulled away from the Dallas Mavericks, who are missing 5 rotation players. Luka out, Tim Hardaway Jr. out, Dorian Finney-Smith still out, Josh Green still out, Maxi Kleber still out. That could technically be a starting lineup for the Dallas Mavericks. So they're missing all those players. Spencer Dinwiddie, I thought, played well in his stead. Christian Wood coming back from injury, 23 points, 16 boards for him. They needed that. And we have to talk about
party. Let's go party.
Jaden Hardy goes off the bench for 25 in this game. He gets some extra extended run. Hopefully that means Jason Kidd will play him some more in the upcoming stretch for the Mavericks.
Dame scores 40. A trio of other Blazers each dropped 20, and the Blazers slammed the Dallas Mavericks in the fourth quarter to sweep Dallas over the weekend. I'm Mike Richmond, host of Locked On Blazers. Damian Lillard scores 40 points, dishes out 6 assists, and he has a fifth straight 30-point game as the Blazers complete a weekend sweep Saturday and Sunday over the Mavericks. Sunday, the Luka-less Mavericks weren't very good, and the Blazers treated them like they weren't very good in the fourth quarter. It took them a while to pull away, but in the opening 9 minutes of the fourth quarter, Portland opened up from a 3-point game to a 21-point game, and that was that. Dame scores 40, Anthony Simons 20, Jeremy Grant 20, Yusuf Nurkic 20. That's 100 points from 4 starters. This team can be very good on offense. And if they are, they're going to be a pretty competitive basketball team. This is their formula. After losing 5 in a row, they find their offense over against a Dallas team that could not guard them. This is who they need to be going forward. Listen to Locked On Blazers for more.
Coming up, Brooklyn has no answers for OKC. This is Locked On Game to Game NBA. Today's edition of Locked On Game to Game is brought to you by BetOnline, the #1 spot for all of your online sports betting needs. You can head over there to get the latest live odds, and whatever sport you are interested in betting on, you can do that at betonline.net. It's where the game starts. Welcome back. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game NBA. I am your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you once again for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. The shorthanded Brooklyn Nets had no answers for a well-rounded performance from OKC. Locked On Nets and Locked On Thunder have everything that you need to know post-game.
Doug Norrie, Locked On Nets, coming at you following a 112-102 loss by the Brooklyn Nets to the visiting Oklahoma City Thunder. The Nets' second game in a row without Kevin Durant and their second loss in a row without Kevin Durant. Once again, the team struggled in the fourth quarter to get anything going. Kyrie Irving does finish with 15 points, but it's on just 7 of 20 shooting, 1 for 7 from 3. The Nets had a bunch of open looks in the fourth quarter that probably could have kept it a game. Nothing went down. It was sort of the story of the second half for this team. Probably not panic time yet. Nets are still 27-15 on the season, but another game goes by without Kevin Durant and another game without a win. Ben Simmons did not play in this one either. We are going to be covering this game, what the past has shown for the Nets to maybe be the truth for the future. We'll be covering it all over on Locked On Nets.
The Oklahoma City Thunder win 3 out of their 4 road games, capped off by this amazing win in Brooklyn. The Thunder are 10-0 in their last 10 games in the state of New York. Josh Giddey loves playing in New York and is playing like a star right now, averaging 19-7-7 in the turn of the calendar year. Josh Giddey has been excellent for the Thunder, who are now tied for the play-in tournament. Will the Thunder make a play-in or play-off push? Find out in today's Lockdown Thunder.
Orlando gives a really good showing on the road in Denver, but a Joker triple-double was too much to overcome for them. Locked On Magic has more on last night's matchup.
Buzzer beaters like the one Nikola Jokic have are both a confirmation of how close the team is to competing and the fact that they had a real chance to win the game. It also leaves you wondering what if. What more could you have done? What more could you do to get a win? Because it was really just one play that cost your Orlando Magic a 119-116 game against the Denver Nuggets. For me, this game was all about the Magic's energy and really the lack thereof in the first half. This was a game, the last game of a long West Coast road trip, the longest road trip of the Orlando Magic season, and they had to manufacture energy any way they could. They found it in Bol Bol, they found it in Markelle Fultz, they found it in Mo Wagner, they found it in different areas, and they brought it in the second half, waking up to get back into the game, cut into a 15-point deficit, have the lead late in the game, but it comes down to those little plays. The consistency issues that this young team has had as they're trying to learn how to win. Markelle Fultz splitting a pair of free throws and then allowing Nikola Jokic to be the MVP. The Magic are making some very real progress, but there's still a long way to go.
That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Game to Game NBA. Thank you so much for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. Now make sure that you are subscribed to Locked On NBA and, of course, your favorite teams, Locked On Podcast, here on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcasts from. I'm Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On Game to Game.